Hello and welcome to No Apologies on Beck, where we are unafraid to speak the truth. You're always laughing, that's good.
It seems like it's fun to be here.
It's because
just seems like that.
it's a never-ending crap show
It
when
is.
you're working with me, that's for sure.
You are amusing, I will give you that.
Okay.
All right, so yesterday we started the show by talking about some crossover recaps. So we were going over the bills that you have done, and we're kind of in break right now between the first part of the session and the second.
Right, exactly. We call it crossover. The House heard all its bills, the Senate heard all its bills. We take a couple of days off, and then we hear the other chamber's bills, do some reconciliation, yada, yada, yada. So this is a good time. You know, we kind of hit a lot of the state legislation hard, but we're in a unique situation that this is what's going on now, and so it's relevant. And I also, you know, have some good access.
Right,
and so
good access.
Right,
yeah.
so we're not trying to completely bury you in it, but we do want to take advantage of the information we have and bring it to you. And before you know it, legislature will be over.
Honestly, I think the fact that we've been talking about these bills, people seem to be very aware of them because we did a social media post on it, and people were saying, well, I like 1323. I'm like, wow, they're actually really...
And we hadn't talked about 1323 yet.
Like, so they're invested.
Right.
So very, very cool. Thank you, listeners and viewers. Very cool.
Okay, so we've got a great guest coming up tonight, Pete Hanebutt, and we are first going to be talking about some of these bills. So, first one up, just as you said, House Bill 1323. This is one that I would say we as legislators, this is the one so far where we have the most emails. This makes it so the governor and the mayors cannot institute a mask mandate for the people of North Dakota. It says very simply, limitations on requirements to wear a mask. A state or local elected official, the state, or a political subdivision of the state may not mandate an individual in this state use a face mask, face shield, or other face covering. There are a couple of other tidbits in there. I think this is the most salient piece. Okay. Actually, there are a couple of other little tidbits I'm not as fond of because you could say it infringes on the rights of private business. But if this goes
How did the emails go?
The emails were essentially 199 to 1 of do pass, do pass, do pass.
Really?
Yes.
That's very interesting. Well, that's great.
And believe it or not, after a lengthy debate on the floor of the House, it did pass. And most of us were shocked that it passed. And I'm looking up right now.
To find out what the count was?
What the count was, yep.
Well, this was one of those things where you want a lot of involvement, right, from the public anyway, and you got it. So that's all good,
Yep.
I guess.
It passed 50 to 44.
Wow.
Which is a close vote. It takes 48 votes to pass. And regardless of how many people are there, because the vote is always based on the number of representatives elected, not present.
Not present.
So it got 50 votes, and now it will go over to the Senate. Very interesting. I don't see it faring as well in the Senate. So those of you that were writing, your legislators, you may want to continue that. Go to the Senate. And it's possible we don't have to worry about state mask mandates. You can leave it up to the individual, which would be phenomenal.
Wouldn't that be
It would.
freedom-loving? That would be great. Well, the question is though people need to contact their senators now or in advance, or what's your advice for people who want to?
Here's the scoop. If you're going to forget, do it now.
Right? That's a great idea. That's a great piece of advice.
Do it now. Do it tonight, because it still will go in their inbox. Now, if you're trying to be really optimal in your timing, then you're going to want to wait probably 2-3 weeks. I'm not sure when it's going to get to the Senate, because yes, having a bunch of emails within a couple days of voting is going to be really great. The thing, though, is that it's going to be heard by a committee. And I'm guessing most of the viewers are not going to take the time to figure out which committee and then find out which members are in the committee. So you may as well just email now. Just email now.
I have another little pro tip for you. If you're going to email your senator, in the subject line, put in your subject line, HB 1323, please vote yes. Put it in the subject line. It saves them all the time that they have to go through reading your email that way, and they know right off the bat, and then they can count when they look at their emails, okay, these are pro, these are against. So that's my little pro tip.
It really does.
Does that help speed up the...
Absolutely does, especially when we get the hundreds of them, and then you can just see what it is and,
so that's my little
take
pro
it from
tip
there.
for today.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have House Bill 1281.
Correct.
And go ahead and bring that up. 1281, this is for, we've had over the last few sessions, school choice bills. And I had one, I guess it was 2 sessions ago, that would have given a significant amount of money to people that are private schooling, homeschooling, online schooling. It's a portion of what the states pay to the public schools
for schooling.
And so all in all, it could have been a very good thing because the parents that are not doing public school get a portion of that money, but the public school still gets the other portion of that money, even though they don't have the kid.
Right.
Anyway, this time round, and those, by the way, for instance, mine in 2 sessions ago got changed into a study, passed as a study in the House, went to the Senate, couldn't even get passed as a study in the Senate. They wanted to kill it. But you see here, a taxpayer is entitled to a credit against tax liability determined yada yada, for each dependent of the taxpayer who received non-public education at a non-public school approved under this section or home education as defined, yada yada. The amount is $500, so it's a small amount.
It's not a huge amount, especially if you're doing
It started off at $2,000.
Wow, and they whittled it down
to $500.
Wow.
This one also passed. This was very close. This is why I'm bringing it up, because these bills that we're talking about tonight are bills that the people of North Dakota have spoken, and they seem to have a lot of grassroots support.
Excellent.
And this barely passed as well, 50 to 44. So when this goes to the Senate, if it were to pass, and if you are doing homeschooling, private schooling, online schooling, hybrid model, yada yada, you could perhaps get a $500 credit, which can help defray some of those expenses of educating your child.
That's a great thing. I'm glad that people were weighing in on it too. I suspect because of the year that it is and the year of COVID and having children home, it probably was a little more on people's minds than previously.
Yeah, homeschooling is skyrocketing. It's absolutely skyrocketing. All right,
moving on.
Another one. We have House Bill 1024. Okay, this one. this was the Ethics Commission. Okay, I should have probably done a video clip because I got a little bit stink-eyed on the floor of the House. So this is one. We have appropriations bills. So your legislature does not spend money; it appropriates money because it's money that we don't have yet. And so what we say is, okay, when this money comes in, or over the course of the next 2 years, we are appropriating this amount, which goes to your department, and you can spend it. So this was an appropriation bill for the Ethics Commission. The Ethics Commission is what came in, I guess, 2.5 years ago,
right.
And was forced onto us by a very liberal group of people from out of state, very wealthy, puts it into our state constitution where it doesn't belong. What we heard on the floor of the House is that there were a total of 5 complaints over these past couple of years.
Wait a minute, the whole commission got
5 complaints, 3 were dismissed. So 2 legitimate complaints. The person running, I hear he's a really good guy, solid person.
Good.
But he's making $135,000 a year.
For 2 complaints in 2 years?
Exactly. So we said to the Appropriations Committee, no, and we actually killed the appropriations bill. Then they made a motion for us to reconsider, saying if we reconsider, they'll take it down, they'll fix it, they'll drop it down. We did that. They took it back down. They had the gall to bring it up the next day with no cuts. And then they were on
earth?
Then they were on the floor saying, it was basically like, you people just didn't understand.
So we're just going to explain it to you and patronize you.
So they gave us this lengthy explanation why it was so important. This guy's such a good guy, and he's really not making that much money. And so it passed.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. 61 with 61 votes, it passed.
So the same amount of money is going to be appropriated.
Exactly the
same amount of money for
Let's hit one more bill.
That's astounding. Okay, there should be an outcry from the public on that
1165.
Wow.
This one is the qualified electors and election restrictions. This is, so Bismarck, Fargo, several cities, I guess, have an extraterritorial zone.
Okay.
And that means essentially, I'm just going to really simplify it. If you live within 4 miles of a certain size city, that city can completely govern what you do with zoning and everything else. But you can't vote in the city elections. And basically, we are saying this is basically regulation without representation.
Representation, right.
And so this bill came up, and it basically said if you're living in an extraterritorial zone and you're being regulated, you can vote in the city elections.
Which makes sense.
This was highly contentious as well.
It was. It seems commonsensical to me.
Well, yeah, but one of the bill carriers said, well, we don't let out-of-state people vote in our elections, and I said, well, we also don't regulate and zone people from out of state either.
That's true.
This bill passed with 48, the
It
bare
did.
minimum necessary.
Wow.
So these are all very good bills that have a high likelihood of being killed in the Senate. And there you have it.
Unless people get on their emails and their phones.
Yes, exactly.
So if you get involved, watch the show again and
Be
put those
active,
numbers
people.
written down. Yep, all right.
Be
All right,
active.
when we come back, I'm very excited. We have a guest in the house from the North Dakota Farm Bureau.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
Hello, hello, welcome back. No apologies on Beck. We are here with Pete Hanebutt, Director of Public Policy. Not public frickin' policy.
Nailed it.
I did it this time. So thank goodness for that.
For the North Dakota Farm Bureau.
North Dakota
Oh
Farm.
yeah, the most
I
important
just got
part.
to finish it up for you. Got it.
NDFB.
I'm here to
So
help.
welcome, Pete. Welcome,
Thank you.
welcome,
It's nice to
welcome.
be here.
Really happy to have you. I think you are a great personality to have in the Capitol.
Thank you.
He's there lobbying us on various bills, and I will say that I became enthralled with Farm Bureau several years ago, which is weird because I don't know jack about, even though I come from a line of farmers, I don't know anything about it. However, I do know that, is it your policy book? Is that what you call it?
Mm-hmm.
So their policy book, you carry it? Yep.
Every day.
Unbelievable. That is, if you go through their policies, it is, you're reading basically a manual for patriotism.
Awesome.
It's unbelievable. And
Oh,
I fell
that's
in love
great.
with the group, and I still don't know jack about farming. I do know farmland is a good investment, and that's the extent of my knowledge of farming.
We can help you learn more about farming.
Okay,
We'd
wonderful.
be tickled to.
So is this updated or?
Every year, our members get together at our annual meeting and they develop policies. The policies start at the township level, then at the county level, more often than not at the county level, and then filter to the state organization annual meeting. And then they are debated on the floor with all the delegates in the room, and some make it in the policy book and some do not. And then we have a system where the policy can cycle off if it's not renewed after 3 years. Some of these policies stay very fresh and are renewed every 3 years. I mean, things like we should have a biennial legislature. It's been in a while and it's going to stay in. Other things that are temporary sometimes move out of the policy book because they cycle off. They're no longer necessary. Maybe we've accomplished those things. And so they cycle off and we don't need them in the policy book any longer. And so, but it stays very fresh, and it is everything under the sun that could impact people of rural North Dakota. Not necessarily just farmers, but people in rural North Dakota certainly.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It sounds like an amazing tome.
It is and you know, sometimes you think, gosh, there's an awful lot of stuff in here, but the national book, the American Farm Bureau Policy Book, is pages and pages, smaller font, and they cover obviously more things. They have more issues when you have a Farm Bureau in every state, from Maine to Hawaii and from Alaska to Florida, plus Puerto Rico. There are an awful lot of issues. We probably don't need to know about sugar cane in North Dakota, even though they do in Florida and Louisiana, and it impacts our sugar beet folks in eastern North Dakota. So it all ties together.
I learned some interesting things about sugarcane when I was in Texas last year. I don't know if you know this, but they have sugarcane in Texas. And did you know that they go around the field before they harvest it? Because what they do is they burn it. And they go around with a bullhorn in South Texas to make sure that the people are out before they start setting it on fire.
Interesting.
I had never heard that before. I learned that about agriculture last year. Who knew?
That's interesting stuff. Agriculture is great all over America.
Yeah. You just mentioned biennial sessions are in there. So Farm Bureau is a proponent of biennial sessions.
A biennial session. And you know, there are very few states that still have a biennial session. Texas, North Dakota, Nevada, a few others have a session every other year, legitimately every other year. A few states have a modified system where they come in and they have what they would call a budget session, and then there are states that come in with a mandate if a governor calls them in. What we have noticed throughout history in America since, say, the 1950s, when states change from biennial to annual, nothing changes except budgets go up. It's human nature that legislators, when they're in the State House, will react to anything as if it's a crisis. So they spend money more freely. And this past biennium would have been a really good example for us. We didn't overreact to changes in the oil prices, even though that has a big impact on our state. But not overreacting in either direction has been good for our state, because our legislators were at home, they could hear from their constituents, and they could hear, yeah, this will pass, and the ebbs and flows of the market take care of it, and we're not quite at our hair on fire and screaming and running out of the room like it's a crisis. But if you were there every spring, for a session, then everything becomes a crisis, and you would tend to overreact.
Very interesting.
So if you look at Arkansas, who is one of the more recent states to change, they have a budget session, and then they have a regular session the next year. And even their budget session, it's amazing what can become a policy issue that needs to be in the budget session. And so they overreact in that direction. And my colleague there, who's been with Arkansas Farm Bureau for 25 years, we've kind of been in the network together for a long time. He said, what we have noticed of this, besides the spending, the real challenging thing is you can't find anybody decent to run for office because of the commitment. Even though it might be the same 90 days or 80 days or 100 days, that is still time away from home each spring. And that's
I hadn't even thought about that.
I guess you'd say spring, winter, each January and February. And so that becomes a problem. And so what they find is the people who are willing to take that time and run are either the completely independently wealthy that don't need anything else to tie them to home, or the completely retired who have nothing else to do and it's a hobby for them. Not that those people can't serve and do a good job, but it certainly ruins the citizen legislature that we have in North Dakota. No small business people, school teachers, those folks would all go away. And so when you think about what it could mean for the makeup of your legislature and the mentality of your legislature, it kind of scares us to think that we could go away from the citizen legislature that we have in this state. I'll go a little further and say, when you think about the budgets that we have in Texas with a budget and a landmass bigger than a lot of places in Europe, to think that they can do it every other year, and we do, considering the per capita spending that we do, it is awfully hard for me to justify how Vermont even has anything more than a town hall about every 5 years.
Right.
You know, they have the same population as us because they have they have one congressman.
But they've got this tiny little landmass.
And the landmass is like our state house district that's out there from Williston down to Adams County.
Is that right?
So, you know, it's not quite that bad, but it's tiny.
Right.
And yet they have a session every spring, and it becomes a town hall for almost everyone in the state.
I've been opposed to the annual since I got in. Now, Senator Becker was on, and he was starting to swing me a little bit.
I know.
Because we had all this COVID money coming in, and so one of the arguments is when there's spending to be done, it should be done by the whole legislature, not a very small body like the budget section. I think that's a good argument, but there are these other arguments as well, and one of the things is that I'm seeing there's this encroachment. What we did last session and this session is we went in for a day. We still worked the next 2 days, but we didn't go on the floor, so they weren't counted as legislative days. So effectively then it becomes 82 days. And then if you break that up, then it becomes 84 days, and then you get comfortable enough, you do it after the the crossover, then it becomes 88 days. You know, that there's that kind of encroaching.
And the usage of staff would be the same. You know, when I worked for a legislature in my previous state, the session was over and we still worked for several days to catch things up. They will have that requirement, whether, at 90
That's
days,
true.
at 80 days, at 20 days. They'll still be there for several days. So if they think that the cost, keeping the days exactly the same and just having it in 2 different calendar years, will keep the cost the same, I think they're fooling themselves.
Yeah, interesting.
Very disappointing to think that a state with all of our common sense would go away from what has worked well for all these years and to chase something that could just cause us to be reactionary.
Yeah. We only have about a half minute left. Tell me, because it was District 8, which is a rural district, what do you think about how things went down with the legislature?
Kind of a sad case with the death loss of someone who won the primary, regardless of how he won, and then the idea that we needed to replace him outside of the norms really frustrate a lot of our members.
Yeah.
That if we have this political party and this political party is to fill vacancies in offices, the way it happened was didn't make fans of our members, and I think the bill that we had that clarifies that is a healthy thing for our state.
I agree. So you're saying that you said not fans. Your members were not fans. Fans of what?
I think they felt like it was an underhanded way to try to fill that spot.
So they weren't happy with the governor, is what you're.
I would say a lot of people have told us that.
Okay, I gotcha.
Very interesting stuff. Okay, when we come back, we've got other topics. This is so instructive. Pete Hanebutt when we come back.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
it's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Beck Communications is hiring. Beck Communications is seeking qualified candidates for plant technicians in our Wheatland, North Dakota location. Beck Communications is an equal opportunity employer. To view the job details, visit www.beck.coop. To apply, email your cover letter and resume to careers@bechtel.coop. Beck Communications, making connections that matter.
If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.coop for eligibility guidelines and applications.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck, your after-hours oasis of sanity, and we are being kept sane tonight by none other than Pete Hanebutt, Director for Public Policy at North Dakota Farm Bureau.
Somebody else finally can stumble. It's not just me. It's not just me and Becker on Beck. Okay,
Yeah,
so we have been talking about a couple of different things with the legislative session this time. We thought we would bring up the Stand Your Ground issue and where the Farm Bureau stands on Stand Your Ground.
Now, we did cover it a little bit, so the viewers, or at least the frequent viewers, know what we're talking about. But you can give a little bit of the basic of it, and then where you stand on it as the Farm Bureau,
Where
and
we
why.
stand on our ground, yes.
Stand.
It's an interesting thing. In our policy book, we have a pretty clear policy that says a person should be able to stand their ground and not have to flee from an attack. Basically, I'm summarizing a little bit. And that goes back to the idea that, it's not just your home that is your castle. It is, your property, whatever that is. And some of this stuff it gets to be a real challenge with folks, and we saw it during the DAPL protest, that people couldn't defend themselves, that the sheriff and other folks, or law enforcement, I should say, not necessarily the sheriff, but law enforcement were saying to people, you better have a plan because we won't get here in time. If something heinous is going to happen to you and your family, you better have a bunker plan. And this is America. We shouldn't have to worry about that. For God's sake, you ought to be safe in your home, and you ought to have a presumption of being safe in your home. And so this is a big challenge for us, and we hope we never have those things again. You never know what's coming down the pike and what's going to be in the future. But people ought to be able to defend themselves, their life, their liberty, and their family. And sometimes you worry that we're so anxious to not offend anybody that you give up all your liberties, and you end up like Thomas Paine. If you're willing to give it all up, for a little security, you don't deserve either. And so it's been in our policy a little while now, and our members feel pretty strongly about it. And I don't even think it's an east-west and north-south thing for our members. It's just a pretty solid ideology of our members. And so we didn't know there was necessarily going to be a bill this time. We've obviously stood up in the House Judiciary Committee and supported those things. And we've obviously had some opponents in that regard. But I think some of these things scare those who are opponents on the surface value. But when you really delve into it, it shouldn't be that big of a problem for folks. And so we're hopeful. And like you said about some things in the earlier segment, these might die in the Senate, but we're going to keep the feet to the fire and keep talking about the issue so people realize why it's important.
Are your Farm Bureau members fairly active in being vocal with regard to some of the legislative issues?
Yes, we have a core group of folks who are very active. We have, like a lot of groups, we have some contact folks where we will send out a blast and expect them to respond back. We do get a fairly decent response on all those kinds of things. We try to make sure that there's a balance of folks from every district. And you know, I think we're more responsive than a lot of groups just because the nature of our folks is they tend to be more active. They tend to be more committed to their communities in a lot of ways than the volume of folks that maybe would be in a bigger city. And so we're active in our communities because we live out there in the countryside and in the small towns of North Dakota. And so I think our members tend to be a little more active.
How long have you been with the Farm Bureau?
I've been in the Farm Bureau Network nearly 30 years. However, I started my career in Indiana, and I was with Indiana Farm Bureau for 20 years. My family was a Farm Bureau family going back to my grandfather's generation when the Farm Bureau was founded. It's funny, when we settled the certain estates, I found checks that said, you know, to Farm Bureau in Indiana from back in the 40s and 50s. And so, you know, the family's been involved. And my dad, as soon as he retired from Extension, they put him on the local county Farm Bureau board and all. And so we've been a Farm Bureau family for a long time. I came to North Dakota 8 years ago. The CEO here, Jeff Missling, made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And so we packed up lock, stock, and barrel, took a leap of faith and moved to a state where we knew very few people. We did know the culture a little bit, and I would say that my family is committed, and we would not move back to Indiana, no offense to where my grandparents are buried or anything, but this is the state that is like what Indiana was 30, 40 years ago.
Well, that's a compliment.
A rural state where, you know, there was still some common sense and you didn't react to everything. The legislature in Indiana is controlled by, no offense to attorneys, but lawyers from the big city, because that's who populates the legislature. And so the big cities in Indiana control everything, and we maybe have 1 or 2 or 3 active farmers in the legislature.
Really?
Where here we have an awful lot of active farmers, active small business people and all that. And so it's a much better setting here. And my boys have both said, you know, wherever college takes us, we're coming back to North Dakota.
Oh, no, that's
and the oldest one has started down that road already, and the younger one is a senior in high school now, and he's planning on staying here in the state for college and coming back to this area.
I so love to hear that. You were singing my song right there. That is all good, and I believe that too I believe that about the state too. I feel very much as you do about the citizen legislature, particularly. You're right, and I can see where you would want to preserve that after having come from Indiana. So let's talk a little bit about the open fields doctrine.
Well, it's an interesting thing in that the way some law enforcement folks, and certainly not all, but it only takes one bad actor to paint them all with a bad brush, and that's a shame. But some folks seem to think that, however you say it, the search warrants aren't necessary in certain situations and that kind of thing. And you know, there's that what do they call that? The distance from the house and all those things.
Curtilage.
Yeah, the curtilage thing. That's a term that doesn't stick in my head. Shame on me. But
we've been teaching about curtilage here.
We can violate a lot of those things with shaky suspicion, and that's a problem, I think, in a lot of cases. And you know, it's not like we're looking for a whole lot of mafiosos in the middle of nowhere cooking meth in all the places in rural North Dakota. There might be some of that. But there certainly isn't in almost every case where it's a farm setting where if you ask the local law enforcement folks, they probably know the person by name. And so some of these things get a little blown out of proportion. And I think it's time to at least take a good look at that, see what we can do to protect the basic rights of citizens, and hopefully we'll be able to do that with this bill.
Perfectly timed. You totally timed that out perfectly. That was amazing. Pete, thank you so much for coming and
really
talking to us.
I'm going to say it again, but I'm going to get it right. Thanks, Pete, for being with us. Pete Hanebutt, Director of Public Policy for North Dakota Farm Bureau.
Pleasure to be here with both of you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Pete. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back with a brand new segment we're debuting.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-busting breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a comb roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's best contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
Did you know the Foundation for Rural Service awards scholarships for rural students? The scholarships range from $2,500 to $7,000. Go to www.frs.org for information and applications. If you're a Beck Fiber customer or the dependent of a Beck Fiber customer, you might qualify for scholarships. Beck awards scholarships to seniors headed to college or to students attending University of Mary. Go to www.beck.co for eligibility guidelines and applications.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck.
All right, we're debuting a new segment. You know how we kind of have off the cuff and we do brain food and we have, well, this one we are titling Dems Say the Darndest Things, and you will see why in just moments. Should we just start right off with that? Let's
Hit it.
Your governor of New York's done one hell of a job. I think he's sort of the gold standard.
So now we've seen that Governor Cuomo has allegedly undercounted nursing home deaths, misled legislators in New York, and he called New York Assemblyman Ron Kim, raising questions, basically threatening to destroy him, I think was his actual words. So does President Biden still consider Andrew Cuomo the gold standard when it comes to leadership on the pandemic?
Well, John, we work with Governor Cuomo just like we work with governors across the country. He's also chair of the NGA, so he plays an important role in ensuring that we're coordinating closely and getting assistance out to people of his state and to states across the country. And we'll continue to do that. And there, of course, will be a process. The investigations will leave that to others to determine, the appropriate law enforcement authorities to determine how that path is going to move as we look forward. But we are going to continue to work with a range of governors, including, of course, Governor Cuomo, because we think the people of New York, the people of states across the country need assistance, not just to get through the pandemic, but to get through this difficult economic time. And that's where our focus remains.
All right, but Jen, my question was, does President Biden still believe that Andrew Cuomo is the gold standard, represents the gold standard on leadership during this pandemic? Just a yes or no. Does he
well,
still consider
John,
him
the the president, well, it doesn't always have to be a yes or no answer, John. I think the president.
Yeah, it does kind of need to be a yes or no answer, and she did not answer that. Circle back,
if you
Psaki
watch,
was.
that's her
That's
modus
her MO,
operandi
yep.
all the time.
That is.
Just don't answer the question. Just pretend that he asked you a question that you wanted to hear.
Yeah, not cool.
But I'm glad. I give him props for going back and saying, hey, you didn't
that's
answer
unusual.
the question.
So the next one is really interesting. It is a California school board. And this is really appalling too, because at the beginning they want to talk about setting up a system for public comment that limits your comments to 3 minutes. And this is what comes up afterwards.
You know, they forget that there's real people on the other side of those letters that they're writing.
Yes.
We're real community members. We have kids or have known kids that have gone to these schools.
Right.
Have an vested interest in this process, and they don't know what we do behind the scenes. And it's really unfortunate that they want to pick on us because they want their babysitters back.
Right.
Right. That's how I feel.
I agree, and it's fine. It's just I just need to get up.
I totally hear that because my brother had a delivery. Yeah, my brother had a delivery service for medical marijuana. The high clientele were parents with their kids in school.
That's awesome.
So when you got your kids at home, no more Friday, no more smoke dog.
I have all of his football pictures down.
Yeah, your quarterback might be traded. You're not happy.
I heard Frankie's not happy.
Right. All three of our candidates are on and ready to go when we're ready to go.
Okay. Uh-oh. Laura Lanier, just FYI, you guys have the meeting. Oh, we have the meeting open to the public right now.
Nuh-uh.
That's what Laura just said.
Great.
They did not realize they had it set to open to the public, that everybody, they thought they were closed and that nobody could see what they were talking about as a closed group, and everybody could see it. It was open to the public.
These elitist, smug pieces of crap. It
Wow.
shows what they actually think of their constituents. And if the parents want their kids back in school, they want their babysitters back.
Wow.
Unbelievable. I hope that there is
They
a
have,
recall
I think
election.
they have all actually resigned at this point. Last I heard,
Good.
they had all resigned, as they absolutely should, but
Oh,
they
this
didn't.
is a public access. Nuh-uh.
Nuh-uh.
Oh, my
yeah. Oh,
goodness.
that was something else. Moving on, we're going to do another one. The Dems say the darndest things. This is Biden on COVID.
We will both increase the supply in the short term by more than 15% and give our states and local partners more certainty about when the deliveries will arrive. These two steps are going to help increase our prospects of hitting or exceeding, God willing, the ambitious goal of 100 million shots in 100 days. But I also want to be clear, 100 million shots in 100 days is not the end point. It's just the start. We're not stopping there. The end goal is to beat COVID-19. And the way we do that is to get more people vaccinated, which means we have to be ready after we hit the ground, after we hit the goal of 100 million shots in 100 days. Now that means fewer than 100 million people getting totally vaccinated. It means 100 shots. And it means somewhere between 60, maybe less, maybe more, million people will have because it requires 2 shots in many cases, not always. So today, I'm directing COVID-19 Response Coordinator Jeff Zients here to work with the Department of Health and Human Services to increase our total supply of vaccine for the American people. And we believe that we'll soon be able to confirm the purchase of an additional 100 million doses for each of the 2 FDA-authorized vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna. That's 100 million more doses of Pfizer and 100 million more doses of Moderna. 200 million more doses than the federal government had previously secured. Not in hand yet, but ordered. We expect these additional 200 million doses to be delivered this summer. And some of it will begin to come in early summer, but by the midsummer, that this vaccine will be there. And the order, and that increases the total vaccine order in the United States by 50%, from 400 million order to 600 million. This is enough vaccine to fully vaccinate 300 Americans by end of the summer, the beginning of the fall. But we want to I want to repeat, it'll be enough to fully vaccinate 300 Americans to beat this pandemic, 300 million Americans. And this is an aggregate plan that doesn't leave anything on the table or anything to chance, as we've seen happen in the past year.
Poor Joe.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, very briefly, is just that they always kind of change the metric they're talking about to make it sound like they're doing something that Trump wasn't.
Right.
They're talking about how many vaccines they can purchase. All of the infrastructure is there. Get these vaccines out. That was put there by Trump.
Exactly.
Trump can't buy vaccines that haven't been produced yet. There's this ongoing thing. So, and then the other thing is just, I mean, sure, he said 300 Americans twice. The teleprompter.
He figured it out, and they probably were flashing it on the teleprompter. No, 300 million.
Right.
Because.
That. Yeah, this is going to be a tough 4 years.
It really is. You know it.
All right. One segment left, folks. We're going to be back, and it's going to be something very, very interesting.
We're talking about the Equality Act.
Ooh.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel, from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best-built, best-backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to No Apologies on Beck. This is segment 5, the final segment of the night.
This one's a tough one because people are hearing about this new Equality Act that is coming up very soon, and people are not liking it.
It is very interesting because we became aware of it recently, and it was voted on in the House today.
It was.
Yes, and it passed. With a vote of 224 to 206, with 3 Republicans voting for it.
What?
Yep, so it will go over to the Senate. But we were prepared to talk about it, even without today's vote.
I was thinking it was coming up early next week,
week
but it's
is
already,
what it was
they
supposed
said.
to, yeah.
But, wow, so it was voted on today. Well,
right, let's pull up a graphic of the act, and we'll kind of dig into it a little bit.
All right. Statement by President Joseph R. Biden, Jr. on the introduction of the Equality Act in Congress. No one should ever face discrimination or live in fear because of who they are. Well, this is going to do a lot more than that one little sentence there, let me just tell you. It will massively expand the government's regulatory reach. It's more of everything, and it is not in a good way. President Biden has promised to unify the nation, but this act alone is going to split us right down a huge chasm down the middle of the country.
Right. Yeah, he talks about unification, but it's really hard to unify when you're trying to keep the promises you made to the far left during the campaign.
Right.
And this is what he's doing here, is keeping those promises to the far left. This is an abomination.
It is.
This act.
It's an overreach. It is all-encompassing. It covers so many different areas that are going to be completely messed up for eons. I mean, I don't know how you pull some of this stuff back either. So, do you want to?
In the act, it says an individual shall not be denied access to a shared facility, including a restroom, a locker room, a dressing room, in accordance with the individual's gender identity. So
hide your daughters, people. Hide your daughters.
A shared facility. It's just unbelievable. The other thing is, not only does it throw everything on its head as far as what we understand and the subjectivity that they're trying to institute as science, but it, again, like everything with Biden's executive orders and his acts, it expands government.
Right.
It says, again, in the Equality Act that it would coerce, it doesn't use the word coerce, but it says any establishment that provides a good, a service, a program, including a store, a shopping center, online retailer, service provider, salon, bank, gas station, food bank, service center, care center, shelter, travel agency, funeral parlor, establishment that provides health care, accounting, legal services, along with any organization that receives any federal funding. In other words,
that's everything.
Exactly.
That's absolutely anything and everything. So what's exempt? There's nothing exempt. It's overreach on a massive scale. The thing that I saw that was really disturbing to me was you can reserve certain jobs only for men or women. So think TSA agents doing pat downs, but you have to let a man who identifies as a woman do strip searches on a woman now because of this act. Let's think this through a little bit, people. There's like horrendous repercussions from this Equality Act.
Right.
This is, it's tremendously bad. And of course, it's going to go to a Senate, which is split 50-50, and Kamala Harris is going to be the...
Yep. Now, if they follow the rules of the Senate, though, it requires a vote of 60.
Which would be
so
helpful.
This is not likely to pass unless the Dems go nuclear and say, you know what, for just basic laws, we're gonna ignore the 60. It's because of the whole filibuster aspect.
Yep, right.
So, you know, we need a Republican to stand up. Someone will, and we'll filibuster. So I'm not saying to feel comfortable with it.
No,
but
at
it's
least
not
there's
a
a
done
little
deal.
better opportunity with that 60 threshold.
This was passed back in 2019, but at that time the Republicans controlled the Senate, so they didn't even hear it.
Right.
There's another aspect in this act that you're going to love.
Okay.
The act treats any refusal to offer an abortion as pregnancy discrimination.
Pregnancy
discrimination.
I saw that and I couldn't even believe that was a term.
Yep.
What kind of pregnancy discrimination is killing the baby? Are you kidding?
Yep. If you're a general surgeon, you conduct mastectomies.
Right.
And someone brings in their 14-year-old girl that they've determined wants to be a boy, and you don't do a mastectomy on this young girl.
You get prosecuted?
I would imagine. I mean, yeah, you're in violation of this act.
Yeah, this is insane. This is insanity.
Right. Now there's an article by Representative Chip Roy.
Yes.
Entitled "The Equality Act not only ignores objective truth, it would criminalize it."
Right.
That is an amazing article.
Perfectly
Representative Roy
stated.
did an amazing job. Just a couple of things in there that he talks about. The promise, the promise of equal rights is being contorted into a weapon to cleanse our country's public square of dissent on fundamental questions of reality, morality, and human nature.
He just does a really good job of wording this too. Those seeking to, let's see, the legislation is not really about equality, rightly understood, but rather about control of and contempt for the average American citizen through total disregard for the consent of the governed when they hold the wrong beliefs.
Exactly. The irony here, of course, is that it would instead mandate moral relativism to ensure that the only truth having protection under law would be the subjective opinions of the elites.
There's nothing equality or equal about this. It's just the opposite of.
So that sentence, I think if you have a chance, check out Representative Roy's article.
It was in the Western Journal. If you go look
phenomenal.
Yeah, very good.
Phenomenal.
So, yeah, there's so much in here too. The first he said would be a cure worse than the disease. Have we ever heard that before too? While the second was impracticable as the first would be unwise because imperfect human reason will naturally create different opinions among people. So put simply, the Equality Act would seek to do both, and countless Americans would suffer for their beliefs in the process. And that's what most people are really worried about with this Equality Act, is just their beliefs are going to be completely ignored and squashed. So.
Well, yeah, it takes a political ideology that a minority in the country has, and it weaponizes it against all of the rest because of fear, because of silencing speech, on and on and on and on.
Tomorrow is Friday, and on our next program, we will be doing mailbag, so enjoy that. And we're also going to finish up with a great off the cup, so join us then. See you tomorrow.